Chapter 2, The Two Strays. So, I was having a freaking fantastic morning.
Sorry, I'll be there in a bit. Got a really late start today.
It's fine. Have to take care of something anyway.
Okay, be there in like 10, tops.
See you soon. I slipped my phone back in my pocket, and then went back to cleaning off Spencer's shoes, which had been lovingly filled with mud by our stupid freaking brownie. The brownie, which was rapidly making its way to the top of my least favorite person list, hadn't put in an appearance this morning. Wow, she is so anti-brownie, this root. But the ruins of last night's pranks were definitely setting this up to be a lousy day. Spencer, who was in a lovely mood, was scouring the house for both the car keys and his spare sneakers. They'd gone missing, of course, because shoes full of mud just weren't enough to brighten his morning. For the sake of the two of us not committing mutual fratricide, or siblicide, is that a word? Regardless, for the sake of not murdering each other, I was giving him space and cleaning out his shoes on the back porch. What a good sister. Because, of course, he was convinced it was all my doing. All part of my evil plot to make the entire household miserable. Or whatever. I made a face as I nudged a chunk of moss out of one shoe. I was just glad Mom had already left for an early morning closing. She definitely would not have approved of the sheer amount of yelling that had already taken place. I didn't approve, and I was responsible for at least half of the yelling so far. The shoes were finally starting to look presentable again. They were still going to need a good rinse with the hose, though. I clapped them together to try to get the last of the loose bits out, then set them on the porch. I straightened, stretching my back as I looked across the yard. Okay, that was done. Hopefully Spencer was having some luck at finding his things. But seriously, this brownie nonsense was going to have to stop. It was getting out of hand, and I couldn't imagine the drama that would have ensued if Mom had been home for this. I was just turning to go inside when something in the grass caught my eye. There was something shining from the center of the fairy ring. My stomach sank a little. Please don't tell me that's what I think it is. I hopped off the porch and headed over to check. The closer I got, the more certain I was that it was exactly what I thought it was. The car keys. Yep, those were the car keys, wet with dew and lying carelessly in the middle of the fairy ring. Damn it. I picked them up, wiping the grass off. We were lucky I was already outside and just happened to catch sight of them, otherwise we'd never have found them. I don't think either of us would have thought to look there. It was a good thing the brownie left them so conspicuously in the fairy ring so they were easy to spot. Wait. My eyes were drawn to the few mushrooms Spencer had kicked over the day we'd moved in. New ones had already popped up, but the evidence of his vandalism was still there. Don't tell me that's why the brownie's mad at him. It made sense, though. It does make sense. It was a fairy ring, after all, and the brownie was a fairy. If I were a fairy, I'd be pissed if someone kicked over my mushrooms, too. We had the option to do that. Then again, I supposedly am a fairy, aren't I? Okay. Regardless, that wasn't the point. The point was, the brownie might not just be randomly bullying him. It possibly had a valid reason for being annoyed. Still, though, it was definitely overreacting. Mud in the shoes was a bit much, and what if it decided to toss the keys in the woods next time? Ugh. I definitely had to find a way to calm it down, or banish it from the house. I bit my lip as I wiped the keys on my jeans and headed back into the kitchen. I didn't want to think about banishing it. It had lived in the house before we did, so kicking it out just didn't feel right to me. Something had to be done to put an end to this, though. Spencer was just coming into the kitchen, shoes in hand, as I stepped through the door. Found them? He scowled at me and didn't answer. Typical. I dangled the key ring off my finger, giving him an equally annoyed look, especially now that I had reason to believe he'd brought this on himself. Found them outside. Sure you did. I tossed them on the table, eye twitching slightly. Of course he wouldn't be grateful, because that would be a totally unreasonable expectation on my part. Don't start, Spencer. I didn't put them there. Just like you didn't mess with my shoes. The last shreds of patience slowly began to evaporate. If I filled your stupid shoes with mud, why would I spend 20 minutes cleaning them out? Mom isn't even here. I don't exactly have a reason to help you. What's the point of pranking you if it just makes me miserable too? If I threw your keys outside so you wouldn't find them, why would I just give them back to you? It doesn't make sense. Then who did it? I clenched my hands as he raised his voice to a full-on shout. Look, I don't know, okay? Reasons. Danny is listening. I had like 3 names go through my head. None of them were Danny. Danny's listening. So, you're lucky. A werewolf's overhearing... A very hot-looking werewolf is overhearing our conversation, not argument. So I'm going to be the mature one. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. As frustrating as it was, as much as I thought he brought this on himself, he was just reacting the way any normal person would. He'd stupidly pick a fight with a fairy, but it didn't feel right to be mad at him for not knowing what was going on. Maybe you dropped them there yourself somehow. I wasn't in the backyard yesterday at any point, so how could I drop them there? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Spencer. Besides that, it wasn't me. You can believe me or not, but it doesn't change the facts. Well, I don't believe you. I know. I set the mug down with a sigh and went to get my stuff so I could just leave. This conversation wasn't going to get us anywhere. Spencer caught my arm as I passed him on my way out. I know you know what's going on. Why won't you just tell me? Gee, I don't know. You've always proven yourself to be such a reasonable and well-grounded person that I can't imagine why I'm so hesitant to talk to you, Spencer. Stop joking around! It's not a joke. You wouldn't believe me no matter what I told you, so why bother? He dropped my arm, still scowling at me. I don't know what I expected anyway. You've been lying for years, so why would you stop now over this? I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm done with this conversation. I bit back any further retorts and stalked to the foyer. Every bit of this was his fault. If he hadn't kicked over the stupid mushrooms, the brownie wouldn't even be mad at him. And I couldn't even tell him that because how crazy did that even sound? I slammed my way out the front door and stomped to the end of the driveway to wait for Allie. It was all so stupid. All of it. The brownie, Spencer, being blamed, not being able to defend myself. Ah! I kicked the trash bin as hard as I could, sending it tumbling against the fence. Pain shot through my foot and into my shin as the bin toppled. But I kicked it again anyway, then threw my book bag on top of it and kicked the recycle bin while I was at it. Having a tantrum in the front yard probably wasn't especially mature, considering I was, trying to be the mature one in the argument for Danny's sake, and that just backfired now. But it was better to beat up the bins than go on a homicidal rampage in the house. Out of breath and finished with my venting, I finally crouched down, clutching my head as I waited for my blood pressure to return to normal.
Should I come back when you're finished?
I tensed at the sound of Allie's voice, but didn't move. I hadn't even heard her car pull up. Just give me a minute.
Rough morning?
I took a final deep breath and stood. No, I'm just pretty sure the bins were plotting a hostile takeover. Decided to show them who's boss before they attacked.
Yeah, you definitely showed them. And everyone on the street. Pretty sure all the neighbors know to stay away from the angry redhead now.
I made a face at her as I righted the overturned bins and picked up the few scattered plastic containers. Let's just go. I shot a final glare at the house before I slid into the front seat of her car. Allie gave me a sidelong look as she pulled away from the house.
You seem angry.
No, really? I glared at her.
Wanna talk about it?
It's that stupid brownie. Do you know what it did today?
I suspect I'm about to find out.
It filled his freaking shoes with mud, stole the keys, and left them outside. Oh, it also stole his other shoes because, hey, why not? Do you know who got blamed for it? Me! Of course, because who else would Spencer blame? And all I can do every morning is try to defend myself on the basis that he hasn't caught me doing it. Because I can't tell him the truth, and what do you think he's going to believe? That some ghost is pranking him, or that it's me? I hate fairies. I hate them!
Well, you're sounding more and more like Ewan every day.
Good. You know what? Ewan's got a good head on his shoulders. Except for when he's carrying his head, but that's beside the point. I gave her an exasperated look. What was she bringing him up for? I'm not on Ewan's route. I don't care about Ewan.
He's not a fan of the Fae either.
But he is one.
So are you.
Debatable. If I recall, it's technically just a leading theory.
I think it's a widely accepted theory by all the experts, if you know what I mean.
Maybe Ewan and I need to sit down and have a talk.
Well, honestly, it might help. If there's anyone who can understand what you're going through, it's probably him. In some ways, he's been in your shoes.
He better not have been. There's no way those stupid boat-sized feet of his would fit. Allie just snickered.
Glad to see you retain your sense of humor in spite of being more ticked off than I've seen you in a long time. I forgot how scary you are when you really lose it.
Does it count as murder if you strangle a brownie?
Probably, yeah. I'd still help you hide the body, though.
Wouldn't be hard. It's small enough we could probably just feed it to Elliot's cat. About that. Allie laughed, but the smile quickly faded.
You sure you're okay?
I'm just frustrated. I keep telling myself that I shouldn't be mad at Spencer. He's just reacting to what's happening in the most logical way. But it's so hard to not want to slap the crap out of him when he's shouting at me and flinging accusations. Especially since I'm pretty sure I've worked out why the brownie's mad at him. And it's definitely his fault. I don't know how much longer I can keep this secret, Allie. Because if he keeps flipping out at me the way he did this morning, I'm going to just blurt it out at some point.
Look, one more week. That's all I'm asking. Then I'll start tentatively poking around. If he's even the slightest bit sensitive, we'll pull him into the club, tell him everything. And you can let him and the brownie fight it out. In the meantime, maybe you can find a way to get it to forgive him for whatever he did.
I'll definitely be looking into it. I can't take more of this.
I'm really sorry you're having to deal with this sort of thing.
It's not your fault. It's no one's fault. Normal people don't assume kicking over mushrooms is going to enrage the local brownie. And I'm sure that tormenting someone over mushrooms seems perfectly reasonable to a fairy. Being caught in the middle of it is not good for my sanity, though. I slumped back in the seat with a huff. But now that I got that rant out, I'm better. Somewhat.
Good. I was kind of worried for a minute there.
By the time Allie pulled into the school parking lot, there wasn't much time left before class. She had to run to the office to explain why she was late. I stopped by my locker to cool my head and get myself into a better mindset for school. The bell rang just as I made it to literature. And to my surprise, the class was much more active than usual. Students were roaming around, chatting loudly. What's going on? We have a new seating chart. Please find the desk with your name affixed. Aw, sorry, William. Oh, huh. Allie had mentioned that seating tended to change frequently. I shrugged and wandered around the empty desks until I found mine. I plopped down, dropped my things, and laid my head down. Someone tugged on the back of my hair, and I whirled around in my seat about to give someone a verbal lashing, only to find Elliot grinning at me. Hey. Oh, hey! My annoyance immediately shriveled and died under the force of his smile. It was usually impossible to stay annoyed at Elliot for long. His reading partner, however... Hi, Mark! Mark Lowe was glaring at me over the top of the playbook he was pretending to read. Hello, sunshine. That is a really funny nickname to have for a vampire. That'd be amazing. My mind had been too full of other things to really think about who my new reading partner was. Oh, please don't be Kara. I leaned across to check the name tag just as a familiar book bag dropped down to cover it up. Hey, oh good. I'm so happy it's you.
Looks like this is my new seat.
Ooh, I approve. He sat down and stretched out his legs, shooting me a grin. Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. God, I hope he missed a little incident in front of the house this morning. Hopefully he'd already left for school by then. All right, everyone, settle down. Now that you've all gotten acquainted with your new partners, we're going to be moving on to a new play. One of my personal favorites, Much Ado About Nothing. What is it with her and romantic comedies? She didn't waste any time getting us started, giving us a brief background on the play before setting us loose on the first act. It wasn't bad. Danny was a fun reading partner, even if he stumbled over the lines occasionally. But at least he understood enough of what was going on to laugh at the banter. That said, the best part was listening to Elliot and Mark behind us. The hilarity of listening to them read a romantic comedy together gave me a much-needed laugh. Ah, the two vampires. One that was born into it, one that turned into one. Yeah, definitely sounds like a Shakespearean love story right there. Oh god, I have to actually do the lines, yes!
I wonder that you will still be talking, Signior Benedict. Nobody marks you. What, my dear Lady Disdain? Are you yet living?
I snickered quietly at the way he deadpanned the line. Danny looked over his shoulder, biting back a grin.
Is it possible Disdain should die while she hath such meat food to feed it as Signior Benedict? Courtesy itself must convert to disdain if you come in her presence. These lines are terrible. What the heck is Signior? How do you even say that? And the rest of the line? Is that supposed to be innuendo? You are disgusting. And even I know what they're trying to say here.
She looked so happy. I covered my mouth with both hands and tried my best to keep the laughing to a minimum. Danny leaned over to me, whispering,
I had no idea Shakespeare could be this entertaining.
Wait until they get to the part where these two characters fall in love.
Hey, I heard that. As did I.
I glanced over my shoulder, trying to keep the smile off my face. I was failing miserably. No, you guys are doing great. I mean, it is a comedy after all. Danny snickered. And it's pronounced sort of like the word senior, Elliot, but with a heavier emphasis on the or part. It's Italian.
Oh. Huh. Thanks.
No problem. After that, Danny and I spent the rest of the class reading and trying to keep the laughing at Elliot and Mark to a minimum. It definitely made up for the frustrating start to my day. Man. Yeah, the day started off so bad, but that was great. I managed to ignore Spencer through trig and chemistry. Fortunately, he was doing the same. And by lunch, I'd mostly gotten my mind off the morning's events. As usual, Elliot called me over to where he and Danny were as soon as I entered the cafeteria.
Nora, over here.
He waved frantically, as if I didn't already know where they sat every day. Their table was already full, but everyone made a space for me as soon as I walked up. None of them dressed anything like Elliot. Danny didn't even seem to think twice about their differences, and because of him, everyone else accepted Elliot too. And me, in spite of all the rumors those first few days. That's just the sort of person he is, I guess. Everyone around him always seemed to follow his lead. Chairs were shuffled, books were moved, and I took my unofficial spot by Danny.
Not eating today?
I looked toward the line and shook my head. I'm not hungry. They were having some kind of weird soup, and I wasn't in the mood for their sandwiches or wilted salad.
You sure? I can go get you something.
It's fine. Danny frowned.
I really don't mind.
I smirked at him, stole a carrot stick from his lunch tray, and immediately popped it in my mouth. There. Happy now?
You can have them all if you want. I hate carrots.
Oh, well, you and Ulrich would get along famously. Elliot, you good?
No. Ah!
Danny and I looked over as a tower he'd been building out of crackers toppled over. Elliot, don't play with your food. Danny sighed and put a hand to his forehead.
Are these people really high school seniors?
Don't mock our tower building skills.
Hey, this is totally legit academia. We were doing the same thing in physics recently using paper and tape.
You didn't make an F on that assignment, did you? I grinned as he shot me a mock glare and started rebuilding his creation.
I'll have you know that I made a C.
Look how tall mine is! He pointed rather proudly to a precarious-looking tower a few layers high. Yes, well done, James. I rolled my eyes, but laughed at their antics. They were dorks, but at least they were lovable ones.
Whoa!
At that moment, someone bumped the table, sending crackers scattering everywhere and lunch trays sliding. I only just managed to catch Danny's water before it toppled into my lap.
Sorry about that.
The table instantly silenced. It was the same two guys from the previous day, the ones that had called Danny away on our way to class. They honestly looked harmless enough. Really? Really. But something about the way they were smiling seemed off. That nudge to the table was definitely not an accident either. But why be a jerk about something as trivial as cracker towers? Seriously.
Hey, Dan. Sorry to bother you again. We kinda need to talk. I'm a bit...
He stopped himself and quickly stood.
Okay. Great! Come on!
Danny's expression was grim as he followed the two guys out of the cafeteria. What's up with that? I glanced at Elliot questioningly. To my surprise, he looked pretty irritated. More so than I'd expect from a toppled cracker tower.
Those two again.
Why does he always go with them? It looked like those guys weren't exactly on anyone's favorite person list. I glanced toward the door again. So who are they exactly?
They're just a couple of idiots. Don't worry about them, Nora.
Idiots? That was a strong word coming from Elliot. He wasn't even openly hostile to Mark, who was a complete jerk to him most of the time.
They showed up toward the middle of the school year last year. I'd say right after Christmas break.
They immediately started clinging to Danny for who knows what reason. I cast another sidelong look Elliot's way. Cryptics, maybe? I mean, they looked normal enough, and I'd never seen them anywhere near the club room, but I couldn't help but wonder.
They've caused some trouble around the school, too.
Really? What kind of trouble? Just fights with people. That kind of stuff.
I don't think they're really bad guys, necessarily. But their priorities are really messed up. I just wish they'd leave Danny alone.
They've been worse ever since he quit the team, too. People are already saying stuff about that, considering the circumstances of him leaving.
People need to mind their own business.
The mood dampened around the table and everyone was quiet after that. There was clearly some history there. Unpleasant history at that. I was betting Elliot knew the full story, too. I wondered just what was going on. I'd never really noticed them before yesterday, but it's not like I'd been spending a huge amount of time with Danny. Someone cleared their throat, an awkward attempt to break the silence and change the subject. So, Mozzie, are you coming to the Halloween party?
Nah, I have to help Danny take care of something.
Wait, Danny isn't coming either?
What? He hadn't told you yet?
I laughed as I watched Elliot flounder around and make excuses for the both of them. But I couldn't help but wonder if they had plans because of their internship with the agency. Allie had already mentioned some club members would be doing work for them on the night of Halloween. You two always abandon us. What are you even doing that's so important? Every year!
We just help out around the neighborhood. It's volunteer work, okay? Community service.
Nora, you'll come, right?
Sorry. I doubt I can. Mom will probably want me and Spencer home that night. What? You're not coming either? At 2 Buford? It's Brute.
You three aren't having some secret party without us, are you?
Nah, just candy duty with my family. My mom really looks forward to it every year.
You sure? Don't you three live next to each other?
Suspicious.
Totally suspicious.
Come on, guys.
He was trying to joke around with them, but I noticed he kept looking toward the door Danny had gone out. He looked worried about it, which made me even more curious. Just who were those two guys? I doubted he'd give me a straight answer if I asked, though. Especially not with everyone around. Danny didn't return for the rest of lunch, though. Suspicious. I didn't have another class with Danny or Elliot for the rest of the day, so I didn't really get to ask about what happened. I was really curious, though. I wondered what Danny would be doing hanging around with two people who were alleged troublemakers. I wonder if maybe they are also werewolves. Maybe it was something to do with the peacekeeping around the school he'd mentioned. To be honest, neither time I saw him go off with them did he actually look like he wanted to. I shook my head and tried to push away the thoughts. It wasn't really my business, and I was probably way overthinking things anyway. Toward the end of the day, with my free period nearly over, I was planning to head to the club early. I just needed to drop some things in my locker. Maybe I'll stop by the cafeteria and get something to drink first before going up. Since I already knew I'd be spending an entire hour alone in the club room, I was determined to research the heck out of brownies. It wouldn't hurt to have something to stay hydrated. I ducked into the cafeteria to make a pit stop at the vending machines. The final bell rang as I was pulling the bottle of spring water from the machine. I decided to wait in the cafeteria for the crowd to die down a bit before going upstairs. Retreating to the far side of the cafeteria, I leaned against the windows and unscrewed the cap. Students poured out of the building and spread into the parking lot. There was one familiar figure in the crowd, an auburn-haired shorty that was stalking across the parking lot to our shared car. I rested my forehead against the glass, sighing softly as I watched him. Now that I'd had a full day to get over being mad at him, I just felt guilty. I really needed to learn to control my temper, no matter how frustrating he was. There was no way this kind of change wasn't going to come without frustrations. He certainly couldn't be expected to be rational and handle things calmly. That had never really been his forte anyway, which meant I needed to do better at keeping my cool. Maybe I should apologize. I slipped the water bottle back in my bag and straightened as I rejected that idea. It would probably just make things worse or start another fight. I'd make it up to him by finding a way to make the brownie leave him alone. It wasn't something I'd get thanks for, but it would at least keep us from fighting again. I left the cafeteria and started toward the stairs. I'd probably miss everyone at the club, too. I was sure they'd all met up and dispersed already. That was fine, though. I could focus better when I was alone. Now if I could just get Velos to stop insisting I straighten the club room. Seriously.
Hey there. Nora, right?
I started as the unfamiliar voice broke into my thoughts. Oh, this is dangerous. For me and my heart. Glancing behind, I instantly recognized the two guys who Danny had talked to earlier. One was grinning at me. I assumed he was the one that had spoken.
Sorry. Didn't mean to scare you.
It's fine. I just didn't realize there was anyone behind me. But yes, it's Nora.
Hey, have you seen Dan?
I wasn't sure I wanted to talk to them after everyone had acted so weird at lunch, but at the same time I couldn't deny I was curious about what exactly was going on. I wasn't sure if I should answer or just try to leave. Leaving without answering is not gonna work. Also, nice bracelets, by the way. That guy is so distracting. I don't know. I feel like Danny would be like, don't provoke. He'd be like, you shouldn't. Don't provoke them. Don't try to get friendly. Don't try to outsmart them. I mean, we don't know where Danny is, so they have no reason to, like, hang out with us, so bye, guys! I just help them out, then leave. As curious as I was, it wasn't really my business. I didn't want to judge people I didn't even know. Even if Elliot and the others didn't like them, I had no particular reason to be leery. Or so I told myself. I mean, unless Danny explains stuff, we'll take it from there. But for now, just leave it alone. I must have seemed a little apprehensive. One of the guys gave me what I think was supposed to be a friendly smile. He's trying. He doesn't talk a lot, but he's trying. I haven't really seen him this afternoon, I'm sorry.
Really? We got the impression you guys were pretty good friends.
I got the same impression about you.
Really? Well...
Anyway, I'm Nora Lewis. I never really caught your names before.
Right. I'm Sean. This is Derek. Nora Lewis. You're that girl everyone was talking about last week.
I made a face at that. Yeah, unfortunately.
Anyway, you really don't know where Dan is.
I shrugged. I didn't exactly have a reason to lie about it. We only have one class together in the morning. I haven't seen him since lunch. And you saw him then, too.
Yeah, that's right. Come to think of it, you seem to spend a lot of time with Dan these days, don't you? I see you with him a lot.
Not really. We'd only walked to class together that one time. Though I guess we had gone up to the club together once or twice, too.
Are you his girlfriend?
No, we're just friends. I haven't even known him long enough to start thinking about dating. They both laughed at my flustered response. Charming. Sorry, I really do have a club to get to. Sean just laughed.
The club isn't going to explode if you're a little late. Besides, you mean the Mysteries Club anyway, right?
How'd you know that? It wasn't like I'd ever seen either of them there.
You were walking downstairs with Danny, right? Figured you were leaving the club together.
One of them leaned in a little too close. I backed up, only to hit the lockers just behind me.
So what sort of cryptic are you? You're not another vampire like that purple-haired idiot. Maybe a witch. Or just a human who's a little sensitive.
So they are cryptics. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't know about the club, right? More importantly, though, that guy was way too close. Can you please get away from me?
Hey, we're just trying to be friendly.
Check your definitions. This isn't friendly. This is obnoxious. I could feel his breath on my face, and while I was thankful it was just kind of minty instead of gross, what I wasn't thankful for was the intrusion into my personal space. At least he got minty fresh breath. I wondered if I should kick him. Probably wouldn't end well.
You didn't answer the question.
He moved to my other side, blocking me from escaping that way. Okay, now I see why the others don't like them. I don't have to answer your question. Besides, I don't know for certain anyway. They both looked a little disappointed at that. Weirdly so.
Well, we figured she wasn't one of us.
Were you hoping she was? One of them? I had a sudden hunch. I wonder if maybe... Yeah. There it is. Are the two of you werewolves? The guy in front of me grinned slightly. He definitely had the teeth for it.
That's right. Scared?
No? For some reason, that elicited a laugh from them both. Sean leaned even closer, and I jerked my head back, slamming it into the locker with a loud bang. Ow! They both cracked up again. Well, I'm certainly glad you find me amusing. I want to leave now.
But I kinda want to talk to you a little longer.
I don't think we have anything left to talk about. Hello? Who is this?
Nora Lewis, what are you doing?
I was overcome with relief when I heard that familiar snotty voice. Kara? Oh, Mark! Mark! Nora? Winifred Lewis? What are you doing gallivanting around with two werewolves? Disgusting. Ah, Mark, coming in clutch. Mark! Sean and Derek immediately backed off, glaring at the blonde who interrupted us. I took the opportunity to flee to his side. My hero! Normally, I wasn't big on clinging to people, but Mark was much bigger than me. And he was a vampire. The perfect meat shield. Rude. He gave me a sidelong look that oozed disdain. I resisted the urge to make childish faces at him. Oh, hi, Mark. Hello, Mark. He glared at the two werewolves.
Weren't the two of you just leaving? No. Actually, we were just having a conversation with Little Red.
Oh gosh, my heart. Ugh. The Varg feels are coming out. Little Red? Really? Is that some kind of dumb wolf joke? Was more like an interrogation, but whatever.
Everything okay here?
Ah, more vampires! Vampires versus werewolves! Vampires versus werewolves! My favorite matchup. More vampire cavalry to the rescue! I turned and smiled at Elliot when I heard his voice. I was so glad they hadn't all left already. Derek and Sean looked even less pleased to see Elliot than they had been to see Mark. I wondered if there was some weird werewolf-vampire drama going on. If so, why do I have to be involved in it?
Nora? Everything is fine. We were just heading up to the 4th floor, and these two were just leaving.
Yup, I was definitely heading up to the club. Right now. I scuttled out from behind Mark, eager to leave that drama behind.
I'll walk with you.
He took my arm and steered me past the werewolves. Thank you, my gallant vampire boys. I swear I heard one of them snarl.
See you later, Little Red.
I definitely wasn't fond of that little nickname. But I breathed a sigh of relief when the two of them retreated back down the hall together and Mark started following along behind us. He does care. Okay. I hadn't really realized there was inter-club drama between species. Elliot, what? He shook his head quickly as we started up the stairs, and I remember that werewolves had really, really good hearing. Whatever the deal was, he must not want them to hear the explanation. Maybe he just didn't want to start a fight after we'd narrowly managed to avoid one. It was a relief to reach the club. Even more so when I saw everyone was still around. Allie and Danny were on the sofa chatting. Brenna was lounging in one of the other chairs, picking her nails.
Hey, there you are! I was just about to come looking for you.
She trailed off when she saw our faces.
What happened?
Everything okay? She was being harassed by those two strays that follow you around. If you're not going to keep a closer watch on them, then at the very least don't drag other people into the mess.
Danny didn't drag me anywhere. He had literally nothing to do. Danny didn't wait to hear more. He stood and started out of the room, expression dark. Oh, they gonna be dead! Elliot caught his arm before he got to the hallway.
Danny, don't. Just let it go for today. In the end, nothing happened.
Can someone please tell me what's going on? Strays?
They're not strays. They're werewolves. Like me, they aren't a part of an actual clan.
Well, I knew they were werewolves. Clan? They're just territorial, as dogs usually are. Well, says the cat. Danny shot her an exasperated scowl. Can't say I blamed him. That hadn't seemed particularly polite. I've heard that cats are pretty territorial, too. Brenna shot me a look that indicated I should probably shut up. I'd never been good at shutting up when I should. She stalked out of the club room, hissing at me as she laughed. Love you, BB. You're an eyesore. An eyesore? That seemed a little harsh for a barely witty retort aimed at her. Then again, her mood swings were pretty legendary. It hadn't been that long since she was saving me from a Spriggan. Now she apparently disliked me.
Nora, can I talk to you for a minute?
Sure.
Outside.
Okay. Danny pulled me out into the hall and a short distance from the club room. Allie poked her head out worriedly before retreating back inside.
First of all, I want to apologize in advance for anything they said or did.
You don't have to apologize for them.
Can you tell me exactly what happened?
It's not really that big a deal, to be honest. They just asked me if I'd seen you and wanted me to tell you they were looking for you.
They didn't threaten you or anything?
Threaten? Do they normally do that to people? He rubbed the back of his neck and looked at the floor.
It's not that they've made a habit of it. They've threatened Elliot in the past.
Oh. Yeah. They don't seem to like him. Or Mark. Do werewolves naturally hate vampires?
No, we don't. Generally speaking, there's no real tension at all between the two.
Ah. Huh. Well, in any case, they didn't threaten me. They just were being weird. I guess they might have been trying to intimidate me a little, but it came across more like really obnoxious teasing. They backed me up against the locker and wanted to know if I had seen you and what sort of cryptic I was. They never threatened me, and honestly, I was more annoyed than scared.
I won't make excuses for them. I mean, it wasn't okay for them to do anything to you at all. Just try not to judge them too harshly. It can be hard to be what we are. And a lot of werewolves are naturally protective of each other. I helped those guys out last year, so they're...
Clingy?
Well, let's just say Brenna wasn't completely wrong. We can be territorial.
Listen, I'm not mad about anything that happened, okay? Mostly just irritated. But seriously, the next time one gets that close to my face, I can't be blamed for kneeing him in the crotch with all I've got.
I'll try to give them a heads up about that. And I'm going to tell them to stay away from you. They're actually not bad guys. They just don't care much for people outside or... well... anyone who isn't a werewolf. In particular, they aren't fond of humans.
Why? Just paranormal prejudice?
There aren't a lot of laws that protect cryptics, particularly from humans. And werewolves in particular aren't well liked. Look, it's nothing you have to worry about.
I have to worry about it because you're my friend and you're a werewolf. Danny seemed surprised by that. Ah, the blush.
Funnily enough, Mozzie told me the same thing once.
He took my hands and gave them a squeeze. My face heated up under the force of that smile he was giving me.
I appreciate the concern, and I'll very firmly tell those two to leave you alone.
Thanks. It's not that I have a problem with them talking to me, though. But I'd appreciate it if they stay out of my personal space and maybe talk to me like a normal person instead of being creepy. It was sweet that he was so concerned about what seemed to be a pretty minor incident, but the fact that he was concerned at all made me wonder if maybe I should be more worried as well. Danny left after that. I had to admit I was a bit worried, but it seemed like he'd be fine. They didn't have a problem with him, after all. Then I had to give a rundown of the situation to Allie, who'd already gotten the slightly dramatized version of events from Elliot and Mark. I had to reassure her I wasn't in a hostage situation or something. I mean, you were scared though, girl. You wouldn't have clung to Mark like a wee Bob if you weren't afraid. The one good thing was that when everyone else had finally cleared out, which took Velos reminding us that some of them had work, I had enough time to read everything I could find on brownies. I went home that day with a plan of action, and got there in just enough time to sneak a bowl of milk and some honey and cookies down to the basement. I really hoped it found the treat, and appreciated it. And I really, really hoped I didn't attract some kind of gross rat or something. That would definitely not make Mom happy. The incident from that afternoon was still weighing on me when I fell into bed that evening. It hadn't seemed like a big deal, but given everyone else's reactions, I couldn't help but worry that I was going to have to deal with two angry werewolves trying to bully me for the rest of the school year.